Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar titled Navigating the East Med Gas Dilemma Prospects for Resolution Between Turkey and Greece. I'm honored to serve as a moderator for this crucial discussion, which seeks to shed light to a complex geological and energy dynamics in the Eastern Mediterranean. Today we gather here thanks to the collaborative efforts of the Tactics Institute and IR11 to address the East Med gas Gordian knot and to explore the possibilities of reconciliation, let's say, between Turkey and Greece on this matter. It's interesting because what seems to be like a positive momentum currently witnessed between both countries, I mean Turkey and Greece, makes this discussion even more interesting. We all remember the devastating earthquakes in Turkey in February, which have fueled an improvement in the relations between Greece and Turkey after several years of high tensions in the Aegean region. Now, furthermore, the recent elections in both Turkey and Greece have resulted in the re-emergence of leaders with a strong political legitimacy and a will to reopen discussions, which offers, of course, a unique opportunity for a constructive dialogue and potential breakthrough. However, it is essential to acknowledge that the challenges still persist. The delimitation of maritime zones and the intention to address these disputes to the International Court of Justice in Hague remain key priorities and points of contention between the two states. And all this is happening in a framework of an increasing importance of the Eastern Mediterranean as a region that holds the potential to enhance European energy security and diversify supply chains. Now, in the wake of the energy crisis that arose following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, regional cooperation to exploit these resources became, let's say, a key factor for future energy development. But to explore these complex geopolitical dynamics in the Eastern Mediterranean, we have the honor of hosting today our distinguished speakers, Professor Imbar, the president of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, Dr. Sofoglou from the Recep Tayyip Erdogan University, and Dr. Angelos Kaskanis from Transparency International. Now, their expertise in various fields will shed a light on the complex geopolitical and energy dynamics in the Eastern Mediterranean, and we will try to explore whether Turkey and Greece can reconcile their differences to solve the East Med gas Gordian knot. Thank you for joining us in this important discussion. Angelos, I don't know if you have anything to add before I hit everyone with questions.
Thanks a lot, Maria, and thank you, Professor Inbak. Dear Nasuh is a old colleague, a friend of old. It's great to share this panel with you. And I joined, currently, yes, I'm in Transparency International Greece. I'm the executive director there. But I joined the Tactic Institute back in 2018. And since then, we have developed several cooperations with other institutions, with the Military Academy of France, with the Norwegian Embassy in London, with the Norwegian Ministry of Peace and Reconciliation, with the Foreign Affairs Offices of Switzerland and others. And from time to time, we try to step in and explore possible conflict resolution subjects, such as the one that we will discuss today. I'm here with as a Greek, first of all, and also through my capacity in Tactics Institute as a policy advisor. I used to be a project manager, but with the current capacity of mine in TI, now I'm an advisor to the board, an advisor to the think tank. And thanks a lot. It's a great honor, and looking forward to sharing our insights on the subject.
Thank you very much, Angelos. Without any further ado, I will start with Dr. Inbar to give us a broader picture of the situation. So, what are the key factors that contribute to the complexity of this geopolitical and energy dynamics in the Eastern Mediterranean, you would say?
The question at the end was if I'm optimistic or pessimistic about reconciliation. And, if I look at interstate conflict, so it's at least 100 years old. And of course, Greeks and Turks fought a few hundred years before that. So what changed? And we had earthquakes in the past. We had spurts of optimism in the past. And this rivalry between the two states remains. Actually, so I believe in historic continuities. It takes a real earthquake, a real geopolitical earthquake to change, the vector of the relations between those two countries. So if I am looking at the possibility, in Turkey, we have a continuation of a rule of an Islamist president, which does not bode well for relations with European or Christian Greece. Also, the Turkey that we see today has remained, not a good member of alliances. It has always carried its own foreign policy in order to take care of its own interest as it sees it. And it is a revisionist state. It wants, supremacy in the East Mediterranean. Its naval doctrine, Mavi Batan says it openly. They have not given up on this doctrine. They try to divide the Eastern Mediterranean economic exclusive zones by having an agreement with the Tripoli agreement, with the Tripoli government over the largeness of each country's EEZ, and the Turks took a large piece of it, and they have no intention of giving it up so far. This is one issue in the Israeli-Turkish relations. We want them to give it up, and I don't think will be very successful. And Turkey, specifically on the issue of energy, is very ambitious. Turkey wants to be an energy bridge from the east to the west in order to enhance its leverage on European powers. It understands that to a large extent, it has the backing of the United States, because the United States is very reluctant, to pressure Turkey too much in order not to push it into the Russian direction. So the leeway the Turks possess in their international behavior is significant. They are not bound by NATO membership. NATO is fighting indirectly the Russians. The Turks are, on one hand, helping Ukraine, and on the other hand, are helping Russia to circumvent the European and Western sanctions. So it tries to take care of its own interests I must say, I appreciate the creativity of the Turks in order to take care of their own interests. Now, in terms of the gas, they have discovered gas in the Black Sea. They cannot put it to use yet, but they have Russian gas. And of course, the Baku-Chehan pipeline is also used for transferring gas. They want a piece of the gas in the East Mediterranean. Cyprus, that is a weak actor, but it has a veto on pipelines to Turkey from Israel, for example. So it's not going to help them, although there is a possibility of transferring gas from Egypt or from Israel by LNG. The Turks have LNG installations on their coast. I don't think Israel has enough gas at this stage yet to export to Turkey, but it is because it's committed to exports to Egypt, to Jordan, to the Palestinians. So the Turks are not going to get much oil from the Egyptians that are their rivals. I don't know if you are aware, the warming up of relations didn't really realize between Turkey and Egypt. So Turkey remains an important, strong actor, and I don't think they have any appetite for trying to make some compromises as long as they are in this international position. We should remember also that the Americans are getting out gradually from the Middle East. They move to the Indo-Pacific. And as a result, the local actors have greater leeway to pursue their own interest. This is true of Turkey. This is true of Israel, of course, also of Greece and Egypt. So we'll see less American involvement here. The Americans don't need the energy. They have their own energy, and the Europeans can take care of themselves. Actually, the Americans are exporting LNG to Europe, and they enjoy the energy crisis that evolved after the Russians invaded Ukraine. So this is a situation more or less, and we'll see what happens. But I'm not very optimistic that will be any breakthrough in Greco-Turkish Turco relations.
Yeah, I feel like this is quite a traditional situation. Probably because we are pretty young, we try to stay optimistic, but but I understand where you come from, and I totally agree. You mentioned that there would be less American involvement in the Eastern Mediterranean. So I was curious, how can external actors such as neighboring countries or international organizations play a more constructive role in supporting the reconciliation process and generally the energy situation in the Eastern Mediterranean?
As I explained, nobody really has good leverage on Turkey. Turkey is a strong actor. It has a strong will. It has a strong leader. He doesn't care much about how he's viewed in the West. He has clashes with Germany. He has clashes with the Americans. And Erdogan pursues its own policy, and he sits quite in a good position domestically. Actually, some of the clashes he has with outsiders increase his popularity at home.
Dr. Sofoglu, I will pass to you. Dr. Imbar mentioned that Turkey can take care of its own interests, has both everyone as an ally, but at the same time, no one as an ally. So, but at the same time, I'm thinking that Turkey has expressed some concerns about its exclusion from energy exploitation efforts in the Eastern Mediterranean. Now, in the light of this, what measures do you believe are necessary to build trust between Turkey and other regional stakeholders in order to foster a climate of collaboration in energy projects, if any?
If any, yeah. I mean, it's a really long story, that's right. But let's focus on these East Med issues and crisis. So actually, Turkey, as you all know, Turkey has got this growing gas market, but also it's a gas transit country already. But it also means to become a regional energy hub. So it's ambitious, that's right. In addition to all this, Ankara also claims that, I mean, these recent discoveries of natural gas and petroleum in the East Med, it's And Turkey is looking to take part in it on its own terms, because the argument is that the quotation, I'm gonna give you a quotation, for the sake of the empowerment, self-sufficiency and prosperity of the all Turkish Cypriots on Cyprus. So that's the quotation. So Ankara, in fact, reminds that, reminds international actors that, its support for Turkish Cypriots residing in Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus is still vested. It's still, Turkey is still mined in this issue. It's still a major issue for Turkey. And it's related to heavily hinged on the East Med gas dispute as well. That's the argument. I would also like to give another quotation of an ex-energy minister of Turkey. He says, independence in energy is a key to a strong economy, strong diplomacy, and thus a strong national security. Again, it's for Turkey, it's a hard politics issue. It's a matter of sovereignty. But that's how the ruling party, which has been ruling Turkey for more than 2 decades, that's how they understand it. And so it's for Ankara in this setting, for Ankara, these drilling efforts in the East Med, they are attempts to shift regional power balances, and it's happening at the expense of Turkey's national security interests. Therefore, as Turkey is not on good terms with their European allies and actually in wider Western allies, and lastly, Turkey has been always balancing in its relations from the beginning to the end. Even the Ottoman Empire in its last decades, it was also balancing. That's somehow a norm in Turkey now, in Turkish foreign policy. They are always balancing. Doesn't matter in which alliance we are. Let's say we are or they are. So these drilling efforts are shifting regional balances. So for Turkey, the options are small in their understanding. It's coercive diplomacy and military might. Why? These are the two options that are most suitable right now. But I wouldn't say right now, because for the last decade it was right now. We would have said right now. But today it's becoming something else. We are seeing this thaw between Greece and Turkey. Not a real thaw, but still a thaw. We've seen such thaws before, as Professor already mentioned. But still, it's an opportunity, and that's what we got. So the first for Turkey does not recognize the Republic of Cyprus as the sole representative of the island. So thereby, it's proclaimed exclusive economic zone is also not recognized. So these are the talking points. That's why it matters. These are so basic, but still, the disagreements are happening in the basics. So they must be addressed. Because why they are not able to talk? Because they are not talking about what they disagree at the beginning. The second, Turkey does not consider Republic of Cyprus as the representative of Turkish Cypriots in the island. So it argues that these explorations are unilateral, and it's undermining the resolution in the Cyprus dispute. So Turkey also argued that these Greek Cypriots granting exploration licenses to energy companies, it's also an attempt to outmaneuver Turkey into a narrow area or open sea, and that's the same trigger for Turkey. The same trigger that Turkey has in the agency. So Turkey has been having this conflict with Greece over the continental shelf issue, and Turkey argues that with these attempts, with these claims, you are outmaneuvering me into a narrow area or open sea. And it's the logic is the very same. It argues that in the East Med, the same game is at play. So that's why they are being quite, let's say, triggered about it. So before the gas issue, this gas issue is overtly related to these earlier problems that have been have been discussed for decades now, and I guess to solve the issue, we should first find a way to address these issues, or at least give a pause on those issues on both sides, and then discuss gas issue in the East Med.
Thank you, Dr. Sofoglou. I highlighted something that you mentioned, that the disagreements are happening on the basics, which is more or less true, and which is the reason why probably we cannot be super optimistic. But given that as a basis, Dr. Kaskanis, how can Greeks strike a balance between safeguarding its national interests on the one hand and promoting, let's say, regional stability through the resolution process on the other? Please unmute.
Yep, I'm sorry. So finding a solution that safeguards, let's say, Greece's national interests and fosters regional stability requires diplomatic dialogue. And Greece should participate in communication with its neighbors, especially Turkey and Cyprus, in order to address the fundamental problems that also Dr. Sofoglou mentioned and Dr. Imbar mentioned, and find solutions that work for both sides. Trust may be developed and compromise can be made, let's say, with the aid of open and a constructive dialogue, or in general attitude coming to the table. I heard what Dr. Imbar said also about the profile of President Erdogan. I also believe that he is a strong leader. I agree, I sign, but I also believe that Greece has a strong leader now that, let's say, it's not that it's not afraid to come to the table, but also I believe that the two countries had their moments, and that was the previous summer, that we had no incidents around the Aegean. We didn't have any common or indirect comments in the press that they were not discussed, or they were not letting each other understand their ways. Like, there was a declaration or there was a statement, but then was like, I understand that our Greek colleagues, or I understand that our Turkish colleagues, as a coming or a second comment. So that this shows also that the leaders of the two countries understand, or they want to be understood from the other side. And indeed, Greece has also sought to strengthen alliances with neighboring countries, but also countries coming from the Gulf, such as the Emiratis and the Saudis. I believe it is wrong to look upon strengthening ties with an agenda of weakening others in the region, I would say. The whole East Med dispute, and that is not for me just gas, needs an overall solution, win-to-win for all sides, that can stay sustainable in the future. Greece has a traditional alliance with Cyprus and shares a strategic alliance with Israel and Egypt. The last two of them are very different, I would say, but are very important for the Greek state from every aspect, from the security angle, from diplomatic angle, to history, culture, and common future, I believe. I see the three of them together. And Greeks believe a lot in these alliances, and would hurt the public image of any prime minister that will not manage to work out the relation with them. So now I agree that what Dr. Sofoglou said, that we need to understand that the discussion should start from the basics. We should not take as guarantee that matter in Cyprus is solved, or the subject of EastMed is just gas. I believe it's a lot more, and by not addressing the elephant in the room, it creates more and more problems in the long term. Of course, Greece, in its quest for a solution, should observe the norms of international law in these subjects, especially the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. I understand that Turkey is not using it as not just as an argument, but not signing it. It's so we cannot have the same discussion on this matter, but still, international law applies for everyone, and its credibility can only be increased, and other parties may be persuaded to take a similar stance by demonstrating a commitment to it, to the norms and the laws. And Greece should encourage multilateral cooperation in the area rather than pursue unilateral steps. I don't believe that going knocking one door next to the other and leaving Turkey last will create a situation, let's say, a status quo that Turkey will accept or will not be eager to change. And this does not imply to the current president. I had a really interesting conversation with a diplomat some years ago, and I asked him, what would the situation be if Turkey had a female president, like if there was a woman as a president? They said, like, my dear friend, he said, Turkey's politics are sexless, genderless, faceless, and they don't imply the Turkish state is one and will be one in the next years. So I truly believe that the dynamic in the region will only increase, and that comes also for the vision of Turkey to becoming a regional power. I do not blame Turkey for that. It should be the case for everyone, not to seek power or to become a powerhouse, but to export influence. And Turkey has worked a lot on that in Africa. Greece is working a lot on, and Israel is working a lot in the Middle East. And I believe that the three of them should come to an understanding sooner or later. And yes, the energy security is of major importance, but we should also see from where does the gas come from. We should see that, again, Qatar and the UAE or Saudi Arabia, they have their own issues. And now we see Greece slowly following the UAE or Saudi Arabia in this. Turkey has been a traditional ally of Qatar for years. So we see that Greece, and with a little bit of push of a French touch, is also coming to the scene with the other two. So the East Med issue is becoming a Middle East issue, or it's becoming a European issue, or it's becoming a clash between of the two. And to close, I would say that promoting long-term cooperation by balancing the approach is not just empty words or just a very diplomatic touch to say things. I believe that cooperation and dialogue should always be the case. And I believe that if the one side does not want to address the 7 issues, let's say the Greek side does not want to address the 7, 10, 15 issues that the Turkish side brings to the table because they believe that they will lose 5 out of 15, or they will lose 1 or 2 in any case, just for Turkey not to lose face, is not the case. I believe that if Turkey or Israel or Egypt or whoever in the region has 15 subjects to discuss, all 15 should be addressed with respect to international law and traditional ties of the countries to the region. Thanks. Thank you.
Interesting how you opened so many bubbles. It makes this really hard to moderate, because you mentioned, I don't know, a gender perspective for some reason, but also you mentioned Israel, and this makes me curious to ask Dr. Imbar, given the fact that Israel has great relations for the last couple of years with Greece, but also it's making its relations better, let's say, with Turkey. Where do you see Israel in this geopolitical dynamics in the Eastern Mediterranean? And is Israel, let's say, a moderator in the relations between Greece and Turkey in some sort or in some sense?
We have enough problems of our own. We don't want to get engaged in other countries' problems. I don't think that Israel is a potential, mediator. We have not done things like this in the past, although somebody suggested once that Israel should mediate between Russia and Ukraine. It didn't go anywhere. So we always prefer to play our foreign policy in a bilateral way. I think our relations with Greece and Cyprus as well are extremely useful for Israel, and we were pushed by the Turks basically to make a choice, and since Turkey was quite hostile to Israel for several years in the recent periods of Erdogan's rule. And we are lucky to have established this very good dialogue with Greece as well as Cyprus. And our improving relations with Turkey are obviously not at the expense of other countries. I think this time we'll be very careful when it comes to security affairs. We don't forget that the Turkish foreign minister of today, Fidan, turned in our people that worked in Turkey to look for intelligence in Iran. They turned them over to Iran. So those things are, we remember, and we will always be suspicious of a Turkey that is led by an Islamist. And I know Erdogan is to some extent pragmatic, and the economic relations with Israel continued. Still today, every day, I don't know if you are aware, there are at least 10 flights from Israel to Istanbul a day, every day, maybe more. And I think Israelis like Turkish Airlines. It's a good airline. And but this relationship has limits because of the nature of the regime and our past experiences with Turkey. Also, we are fully aware that the Turkish military of today is not the Turkish military that was in the 90s, a military that we had excellent relations. I was part of it, and we had excellent relations with a Turkish military, and it was very useful to us for many ways. We want to maintain good relations with Turkey, which is a regional power. And I think that the change in the direction of relations came at Turkey's decision. For us, always, Turkey was considered an important country, and we try to have the best relations we can. In the last decade, Turkey made changes in its foreign policy, and as a result of that, we have good relations with Greece and Cyprus and better relations with Egypt, which is not directly related to Turkey, of course. So I don't think that Greeks or the Cypriots should worry about our better relations, which are on the surface, basically, with Turkey.
Interesting to have also the Israeli perspective. it's also interesting the fact that you had this collaboration with the Turkish military. Maybe in another webinar we will discuss about that. Why not? But I will pass to Dr. Sofoglou, and I would like to ask, although you somehow tackled this in your previous talk, but what are the key priorities for Turkey in resolving this dispute? You already mentioned the disagreement on the basics, but also how can these priorities be reconciled with Greece's and also Israel's interests?
Yeah, that's a hard question, to be honest. And I wouldn't say there's so much. I mean, depending on when. I mean, in the short term, I'm not sure if there will be any room for reconciliation. There will be definitely there will be a thaw. It's already happening, and I'm not sure if it's seen out of Turkey abroad, but that's definitely happening. I mean, they are definitely toning down, and they're definitely looking for more diplomatic solutions. On the long term, I mean, Turkey is not always gonna be. Turkey hasn't always been an political Islamist. Didn't always have a political Islamist nature. It has started growing in the 50s and finally found room for itself at the end of 90s, at 1999, 2000, and in the 2002 elections, they got the biggest turnout. It's been more than 20 years, but it's more of a personality cult than a major political ideology. So it's not exactly holding ground in Turkey, to be honest. And I believe the younger generations are not getting westernized, but they're definitely getting more secularized. And they are way more secular than our predecessors. And I think that's important. They're not getting westernized, they're getting secularized. So Turkishness is gonna be an important part of their identity, to me, to my understanding. That's what I see. But that will be a secular Turkishness, not Islamist one. Of course, there will be. Islam has always been strong in the. I wouldn't say exactly Islam, but I mean, let's say religion. Religion has always been so strong in the rural areas and in the ghettos, but in the more urban areas, especially as in the metropolitan cities, it's always the educated masses are more, I would say, less religious and more secularist, and get them more. So this is gonna make a huge impact on Turkey's foreign policy as well in the longer term, I believe. But I'm not sure if the question is if Turkey is getting more westernized, because if we are talking about Europeanization of Turkey, it's not happening. If we are talking about more less conflict focused, less gunboat diplomacy happy Turkey, then it will be there. But the last time we had a female prime minister, there was Imre Kardak crisis, and she was so willing to go for an open war. It was the bureaucrats stopping her from that. So that's I'm not sure if, and she was quite a secular Turkish. She had a quite secular Turkish identity. I don't think they are getting more and more bigger in numbers, but their nature is not changing. But I'm sure in the long term, it's gonna mean it's gonna bring more positivity in relations. Because this Islamist understanding of foreign relations is taking a toll, clearly, because there's not even room for discussion. But still, it doesn't, there's no, it's still gloomy. The future is still gloomy. But at least, I mean, in international relations, the future is never so bright. So gloomy would be all right. At least it's not stormy. It's not. There is no thunder waiting for us, to be honest. But in the short term, I'm not optimistic.
This was
May
quite
I ask,
poetic. Yes,
may I
please.
ask something about the future? What you said, of course, I respect you are closer to the ground, but I read that there is a growing number of Turkish high school kids, proportionate, that go to Imam Khatib schools.
They don't choose to.
Schools.
That's I understand. That's how the ruling party also changed the educational system. So in certain districts, if you live in a district, you have to go to the district school. In certain districts, there are no other options. We have to go to those schools. But going to those, because in my parents' residential area, there's only one high school, and it's Imam Hatip. But I mean, if you check what kids are doing, I mean, they are kissing and they are having even beers around, and they are nothing like, they are not even close to religion at all. They are just going there, they are studying there because there's no other option. It doesn't mean that religion is going to be eradicated from Turkey, but it will be today in contemporary Turkey, religion is understood in more Arabic cultural sense. Tomorrow it will be way more Turkish culture. Turkish culture will take more impact on religion, and it's gonna change its nature, I believe. And also, it also means that, I mean, people are getting way more secularist.
Interesting how we started discussing about energy and the trilaterals, and now we're discussing about the next generation of Turks and religion. Pretty interesting, I would say. I will try to close with a more general question, let's say. Although Dr. Imbar already spoiled the answer, he said he was not optimistic about the future of EastMed, but I will throw the question anyway for you to answer, all of you. So, are you optimistic about the future of the EastMed project? Dr. Imbar, you have the floor first.
I'm not sure what you mean by the EastMed project. If you think that East Mediterranean countries, like Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Egypt, Greece, and Cyprus will live peacefully and become democratic, I have my doubts.
In terms of energy, let's say.
When it comes to money, there is a different calculations, of course. And there is obviously a possibility that all those countries that have gas will eventually find that there are some ways that everybody will make a buck on it. And then there is cooperation. But here, I want to make it quite clear, in my view at least, that economic cooperation does not mean that there is political accommodation. We've seen from the Turkish-Israeli relations. In economic terms, those relations are very good, they are growing. We have Israeli businessmen going to Turkey, Turkish businessmen coming to Israel, and the relations are cordial and are totally unaffected by the tensions, political tensions, between the two countries. So this could be a possibility, although every country would like to have more control over the assets. This is the nature of the game, and but maybe they'll accommodate each other. So in economic terms, maybe. In political terms, I doubt it very much. And if we talk about the future, we may see an end to dependency on gas, because European countries move to green energy, which is more expensive. So also Turkey, we shouldn't forget, Turkey started its road, it may take many years, for nuclear energy. I'm not sure this is good news, but because it has some military applications. But so we may see the gas being less relevant to the regional geopolitics, but it will take some time for that to happen.
How about you, Dr. Kaskanis? Your insights about the future?
So, I will start with quoting Giorgos Gerapetritis, Greece's newly appointed foreign minister, that he said the Greek government wants to take advantage of the ongoing positive climate in order to come to an agreement that delineating the areas in which each country has exclusive economic rights, including the right to search for offshore oil and gas. And also, I would like to quote ex-foreign minister Nikos Denias, that he shared the same comments, that is a unique opportunity for the two countries to proceed with resolving issues that he was unable to solve as a foreign minister, but looks to assist as a serving defense one. So I understand that the situation is difficult, and although the ex-minister said that despite me not being able to solve anything, I'm very optimistic that it can be solved in the future. This is quite just optimistic, but idealistic, I would say. Or he makes just a comment to support his political party. But no, I'm always optimistic in nature, so I would say that as during summer 2022 or 2021, we didn't have a lot of incidents. 2021, I think there were none. I believe that this can be the case again, and that we can start from something and we can work on it. A no deal is not better than a bad deal, and no deal is not better than an overall cancelling of diplomatic dialogue. And most of our colleagues align this communication, this open dialogue with Turkey as with the North Macedonian one, the one with the North Macedonia, that they say that it was a bad deal for Greece, or there in Skopje they say that it was a bad deal for Skopje. But I believe that reaching an understanding and committing to an agreement is always worth it. And the fact that even the leaders of Greece are discussing about oil and gas, it's a huge step, as it was a taboo for the media and the people for many years.
Let's hope for not a bad agreement just in the sake of agreements, but the same question to you, Dr. Zofoglou, although you probably don't have a crystal ball, and you also expressed your optimism in the next generation of Turks. What is your opinion?
Yeah. In today's Turkey, as we talked about, Turkey has got this major energy ambition, also this assertive geostrategic vision for its future. It's not only the East Med, it's also Middle East, Balkans, Black Sea, Caucasus, Central Asia, North Africa, Sahel. It's got an appetite. I mean, it's getting in almost everywhere, as far as it can go. So as Turkey's power projection capability is growing, its appetite is also growing. So I mean, with this in mind, the energy security, actually not only energy but also energy/security architecture in the East Med, it complicates Ankara's task, because its energy ambitions and the geostrategic aims do not they are not congruent. They are not exactly intertwined in this current energy security architecture in the East Med. So Turkey is looking for access to energy supplies. It wants to utilize energy definitively, and in this definitive way, it means that, I mean, because it believes that energy supplies and access to these energy supplies will have an impact on its economy and national security. And these two are the major issues in Turkey now, in the current situation. So what Ankara is doing, they are pursuing this. They are trying to utilize littoral states' rights in the continental shelf under the customary law, which means Turkey is trying to steer away from 1982 law of the sea, which Turkey is not signatory of. So it's looking for another way. And that's also a big issue because, I mean, where Greece is referring to something, Turkey is doing the opposite. So, I mean, how are we going to make them talk? So first, they should talk about this, but they are not. They say no. That's why the future is not looking bright. So, as I said, I mean, it's a byproduct. This East Med issue is a byproduct of Turkey and Greece, their contradictory views and narratives, and regarding especially their national sovereignty. All the issues at the end come to national sovereignty. Both sides always refer to that. So what's conflicting is their understanding of their own national sovereignty. First, they should address this issue. So finding a Pacific resolution in the East Med is a major challenge. That's why. But first, there are other topics to address before East Med. So what to do? I don't know what to do because even the political leaders of Turkey and Greece always find themselves in a diplomatic spot somehow. There's so much misunderstanding, mistrust, even when one side is trying to reach out with an open heart to the other side. It happened before. The other side cannot trust the others, what the other side think of, because they cannot trust each other. They say, I mean, my Greek counterpart cannot be this Pacific, peaceful, or the others, or vice versa. This both happened. I mean, for both sides, it happened in the history. So, I mean, in this setting, I mean, being so Pacific with Turkey or with Greece is considered weakness in politics of both countries, and it's considered violation of sovereign rights by far right on both sides. So, I mean, there's a narrative entrapment, and I believe this narrative entrapment leaves no room for dialogue, but at least in the short term.
I wouldn't say this is a pessimistic closing of the webinar. I would say this is a pragmatist closing of the webinar. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you very much. It was really fruitful and we had, I think, a really beautiful discussion. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation once again.
Thank you so much for letting us talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.